Steve Baker, I'm so excited to talk to you about RadioShack, from a current RadioShack owner, manager, and computer wizard to someone who grew up idolizing, enjoying, loving RadioShack. And I'd like to cover the whole gambit. Great to have you here today.
It's great to be here.
I started with RadioShack as a kid going into the stores. There was also something called Lafayette. I'm 65 years old. And it began with being fascinated with technology. I mean, the first words I ever said, my parents said, were "one or," which was the sound the Wallensack tape recorder made. I didn't say dad or mom. I said one in. And then I met you and your passion and enthusiasm of having a computer shop, a Solvo technology shop in Elizabeth City. You came to one of my classes even. And I said, we got to do a show together. When did you start getting involved with RadioShack?
Originally, I was the same way as you. I went in the stores when I was younger. I loved every second of it. We actually came about professionally after the second bankruptcy. So after the corporate stores and everything closed, we had been doing computer repairs for many years. I mean, it was probably like 8-9 years at that point, and we had people come in looking for RadioShack related items. I'm like, I have no idea where to send you. So we ended up finding out they had a dealer program that was still running at that point, even after the corporate stores had closed, and that's where we kind of came in.
That's just fantastic, because the store you have is excellent. I just stumbled on it. Whenever I'm in a small town, I go, oh my gosh, someone's still listing RadioShack. I got to go see it. And you have a great store, and there's some life. RadioShack's coming back. It's gone through everything from someone trying to sell crypto on it, the wild man, to I think some of the owners is it South America going, hey, we think this is a good deal. We'd like to bring it back, and buying up or getting controlling interest.
Yep, absolutely. And plan was, after corporate went under, they were bought by a company called General Wireless. They wanted to focus on the cell phone part and did not have much success after some of their deals fell through. They then sold it off to the outfit that wanted to do cryptocurrency, and that was a big flop. But after the original bankruptcy, the group in Central and South America, they still opened and ran stores. They were the largest franchisor. They still owned the trademark and the rights in their region. After the whole cryptocurrency issue arose, they ended up buying rights almost globally. There are still a few territories, but I think last count it was something like 70 countries that they had the rights for RadioShack with. And it's exciting, the things we're seeing coming out of there so far. We're still early on in the process, but it looks like it's going to be the best kind of support we've had for years, at the very least.
Yeah, because people still need lots of help with tech stuff. I mean, it's harder to find somebody that can answer questions, and that's what we were good at. You've got questions, we've got answers was the slogan for many times in the journey. And that's, to me, one of their best things, especially computers and little gizmos and connectors. I've got such and such. I want to connect to something else. And that opens the door for them purchasing other things in your store. We really need a place where you can walk in, because just looking online going, what's this connector? Where does it go? Doesn't cut the mustard. And I bought one of the first new RadioShack batteries that you got in there. Yeah, I think I've used them already. I would have grabbed them and put them here, but they're starting to roll out products. I'm so excited because I made a video and sent it to the group in South America. And I said, you need to come back to America. There are a lot of people here that need this help. And it's got a well-earned brand. And they had Archer and everything else. And when they did a study, they go, recognition of the word RadioShack is still the strongest.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the brand that not only we grew up with, but people still have questions. They still have problems that occur. You've extended your showroom next to it, or the area space, renting it, and you have an extended area. You have a great shop. I saw your prices. I did field support. I wouldn't work for what you're charging people, but it's in a smaller town. So they're lucky. I love to kind of take the journey through history of mine and yours on Radio Shack and see if we can share some of the fun stories, because one of my first experiences was doing a project, and I found in either Popular Science or Scientific America, which I loved, a project for a lie detector. I went to my dad and I said, Dad, this is all these parts are at Radio Shack. Can we go do it? And I remember when we were done, he goes, I think it might have been cheaper if I just bought the unit. But the truth is, I found it. So I just need to show it to you, the lie detector. This was built with Radio Shack parts. I don't know if you noticed that, but if you can see it, I'll add a still in there too. See, that's a Radio Shack meter and dial. And notice the misspelling. I'm sure my dad knew, look, if he's going to do this, he's going to do it as a science project, and we'll leave that on. I can see my dad going, because they might not have believed. Here's the cables. It works on impedance and resistance in your hand. And it's it changes with variation. So this is the real deal. I'll try to open if I can. There's the inside of the box, you see, and those are all Radio Shack parts. And I think we even bought the case there. I'm not sure, but they had a lot of project cases. It was probably there. And that was one of my first early days and experiences of building my own project. It was and I did win in the science project, and I did do it all myself. He was there guiding to make sure, I didn't burn myself with a soldering iron or something. I don't know, whatever, good father overseeing, let me learn from my mistakes. And that was exciting because I would go in and I love to look at the parts. I even I have a Morse code tester. I wanted to become a ham operator. I didn't become one till later in life, and I have that somewhere around in the house. It's still a good one. And then I'm going to show something else from the history that people know. The multimeter. They would do. Does this look familiar? It's I don't know if it still works, but I probably found this on eBay and bought it. But look at these things. These were a big hit. Is the multimeters they had. And then they had answering machines, of course, that were popular. That led to me working at K Street in Washington, D.C. And I have to tell you the story of this because you'll appreciate it. When Radio Shack wanted to have all their stores direct owned, and they were trying to put out of business the stores that are the only ones surviving, the franchise stores, buy them out, and they'd hold on. And I kind of liked them, because they could have the choice of Radio Shack or something else, and that's why they survived. But I was working directly with Radio Shack, got a summer job in DC on K Street. And it was really exciting because it was just three of us. And I just loved the products and I loved helping people. So, I would suggest everything they needed, but nothing more. To me, that's what ethical sales is. If it could use an adapter, you at least let them know. You don't push it on them, let them know. And the manager comes up to me excited and he says, "You're number 3." And he was like, all excited. I'm thinking, there are 3 employees. I'm number 3. What's the big deal? You know what I mean? And then he came up and he goes, the next month, he goes, number 2. All I knew is that I would help people. I'd be honest, and I'd recommend everything they needed. And they seemed to buy a lot from me. That's what I knew. Then came your number 2. And I thought, okay, 3 guys again in the store, you're number 2. And then he came up to me and he said, "You're number 1, I'm buying you lunch." Now, I got to tell you, this manager was the cheapest person on the planet. The fact he bought me lunch, I thought, something's okay. And I said, all right, the 3 people in the store, I'm number 1. Why is it such a big deal? He said, "Martin, you're the number 1 salesman on the East Coast." And I didn't know it,
nice.
And it just, but you can understand if you take care of people, which I see you do. I've watched you in action, and you let them know what else they'll trust and they'll buy everything they need, but you don't want them to buy any more because then they'll have buyer's remorse. And people would bring in their friends and they go, he'll tell it to you straight. Come get it from me. I'd say, come back and ask me. And I worked the whole summer and it was exciting. I have to tell you two things you may not know. We had a Moog synthesizer. Did you know they sold a Moog synthesizer at one point?
No, I did not.
Yeah, they did. If you look up realistic Moog synthesizer, they had one. I was trying to sell some guy with, at the time period that was into music. I never sold it, but I loved synthetic music back then and still do. And they had something else that I bet you don't know that I would buy if I found it. They had a nuclear radiation detector. Okay.
Oh, wow.
This is real. Okay. And it was huge. It was fairly expensive. Okay. And our joke was, if that thing melts off the wall, you're done. There were some of their wild products they had. And then we would have, street people that would come in to get their free batteries. Now, do you remember, were you old enough to have the battery cards?
Yes, I was. We didn't never have any here. And funny story, we're actually working on a loyalty program to bring that back for our store.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, we did have, I did have one of those cards. I've got it around here somewhere.
Yeah, right. It's somewhere too. Yeah. So we would do it. And tragically, street people in a large city, they don't get to bathe much. So if they unfortunately came in the store, it would have a residue. But our heart went out to them. So it'd be like, Tom's coming. And you'd grab a handful of extra batteries and charge out of the store, give him extra batteries because, and I'd punch his card. I'd grab the grabber and get them out. But there was all types of characters that would come in. And then the other thing, I don't know if you remember, they sold computers for a while.
Yep. I actually have a Model 4 on the floor behind me right now. That's on my to-do list. It's going to get up and running one day, but
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we had the Model 3 and the color computer, and I was promoted to, after college, I wanted to work for IBM, but I got a job at RadioShack. So I worked there, did real well, got promoted to another store. And the guy loved me because I was a great salesman. I mean, ethical, like we talked about. And we got in color computers. Now, do you remember the color computer? That was a pretty popular one. You can find it.
It was. It definitely was.
And if I find a link, I'll make sure to add it somewhere. But color computers. And I was suggesting people buy it. And I said, why don't you set up a club? And if you do, let me know. And then some guy set up a club and he gave me the name to give out. And anyway, I became the top salesman of color computers because I love computers. I had one. And I remember as a young man being finally invited to the club, and I showed up and it was a room full of people who had bought from me. And I felt so uncomfortable because, it was the spotlight was on me and I had created this. I didn't know how to handle this. And I was then promoted to computer store manager at Crabtree. And we had a computer. We had a problem with one of our computers where it was a computer for doctors' offices. But the problem is if they had a newborn, it would send the newborn an invoice. And they were trying to fix it because people were so mad. It would send including the newborn, its own invoice. So, but I experienced all of that, and that was exciting, and became a manager, went to their C school. Now, I have to tell you, one thing important in retail, no matter where you are, is what we called inventory shrinkage, which is stuff walking out the door. Mm-hmm. So you have to have things managed so people can see stuff, but it's not easy to take. And I've seen how you pay attention to that. Things that are more vulnerable, you've got to now put behind the counter and everything else. But my first Radio Shack was Tower in Raleigh, and it had the highest shoplifting in the entire city. So there'd be a Sears surplus store, and there was guys would usually go over there and they'd shoplift there and come to my store in trench coats because they could stuff the stuff. So it's in Raleigh, 80-degree weather with the trench coat on, kind of obvious what you're up to. Yeah, right. And I was a young manager. Now I'll tell you a few stories. We might have to have a beer and keep off the record. But I found out that if you caught them and turned them in, it would shoot your whole day and they'd be out the next day. I mean, this is in the 80s. It just was not cost effective. So I figured out I've got to do something to convince them to leave my store without getting in trouble. Now, you probably get in trouble in what I did. Okay, so I'm warning people. But what I would do is they'd come in the store and I'd say, hey, I'm here. Look around. I'm the manager. And I'd walk in back. That would make them feel safe so they'd make mistakes. Because, what I tell people is a shoplifter is someone who cares where the authority is in a store all the time. An average customer does not, unless they need help. So I could feel them in the back. My employees said I could, tell in the back of the store. And so one of the stories was they loved to steal car stereos. Now, do you remember the RadioShack car stereo racks, or is that beyond your time? They're particle board. They had them all in. They screwed in and back, but it was particle board. So you had to be careful. If you pulled your hand out, you could leave a little skin. Yep. So I'm young and a little crazy, okay? I would say, I'd see them go to the car stereo. I said, I'd wait until I knew their hands were launched in the back of the stereo. They had loosened the screws, and I'd yell out, be careful with the car stereo. I've had some shoplifting, so I wired the back to 220 volts. It'll kill the next guy who grabs it. You'd hear a scrape noise. They'd be holding their hand, okay? Now, I swear I'd be sued today if I did this, okay? And they'd be going, I think I need to be going now. I say, you okay? Do you need a Band-Aid? No, I'm good. I think I'll be going. And they'd never show up again. And then the other thing I would do is what I called suggestive sell to shoplifters. So I'd spot them and I'd go over and go, would you like a stuffed animal with that? And I'd start stacking their arms with products. And they'd be holding so much product. They'd set it down and go, I need to go. I said, well, sure, you don't want to buy that radio, because I'd even know what they stuffed in their coat. And I'd say, but the radio in your pocket, we need to get that out too. And then they would, all they knew is they were uncomfortable. They didn't have a good time, and they didn't show up at my store. That was my strategies. I do not recommend this. You'd get in big trouble if you did this today, but I've loved it. And then after 9/11, it was a dip in coaching. And I went back at Christmas, and I was the third top salesman at the mall. And the two before me got fired for inappropriate misleading of numbers. They caught them where they were faking things. But I had so much fun. We had something then called force feed, where they would push in stock. And I don't know if you had to inventory it and everything.
So we ended up, the force feed, what was forced, once upon a time, is actually one of the biggest reasons why we got into it, because all those little packs of, the relatively inexpensive stuff, I said that was what people would come in here looking for. So still to this day, even the stuff we can't currently get from, the current iteration of Radio Shack, we found other ways to get it so we can keep. And we've got, instead of having it hanging on the walls like they did back in the day, we didn't have as much room in the store, so we got a set of the parts drawers. And so it's 4 rows of 14 drawers, and they're stacked right onto the top. We try to stay right on top of it.
Yeah, that's the small inventory, the resistors, the switches, the connectors. You can't, and you really need to see it. It's just like getting online. That would fit my case or repair that. And yeah, I saw that. You got that great rack when you go in back where the drawers that kind of like the hardware stores have. And what a great storage area to have. So there was great times with Radio Shack and working with them. And now my stepson, I think he worked there for a while as well. In the early days, sometimes when they'd come out with new products, we would turn them on, and if it had no smoke and came on, we'd all cheer, because they would sometimes put, some of those early receivers, because they were brand new. I mean, everyone was getting new stuff out, and you go, all right, it's working. No smoke. The key here is that it's still going. It's coming back, and what I have to tell people is look out for any of the remaining actually, it's I guess they'd be franchisees officially. I'm sure they're going to set up some arrangement for distribution.
Yeah, so
And
they basically have it now so that we're all authorized dealers. The all the stores that are left in the U.S. That have actually applied for it and all of that. We're authorized dealers, and we've gotten the okay from them to actually sell in the stores. We can market it as Radio Shack products and things like that. They've been doing a lot of different style products. Like one of the things that benefits us, since we are primarily a computer store, we have been since day one, 14 years ago. They have started doing like computer accessories, like RGB keyboards and mice and mouse pads, laptop cases, and things like that. Speakers, and of course, Bluetooth speakers and stuff like that are real big with them too. But it's really, really amazing to get actual Radio Shack products, especially new products, after so many years. Because when we first got in under, I think it was General Wireless at the time, we would get a few here and there, but a lot of it was just inventory that had rolled back through the stores back to distribution down in Texas, and then they were getting it gone, at that point. Um, but this new iteration is really it looking like it looks very promising.
it's easy math. If they do what it looks like they're doing is listen to you all and then adjust the merchandise based on the demands of the community, there's always going to be something we need that's technical.
Absolutely, and I mean, of course, the batteries. How can you forget the batteries? Like we did get our first shipment of those, and we've actually got a large order that we're getting ready to get a huge amount of them in, so we can start having those. They are awesome because they have the 10-year shelf life printed right on the packaging, and performance guarantee right on the packaging, just like it was under corporate. Um, what 9 years ago now was when they went. So it's amazing to have that backing there. It's exciting future. The future's bright for Radio Shack now.
I'm so excited because the store I took over was $15,000 in the hole due to shoplifting, the one I told you about, and I pulled it out enough that they sent me to what was called C School in I think Austin, Texas. It was a management school training, and I got to meet other managers and contact, and then after Radio Shack, I went to Wake Tech because I decided my sights were on working at IBM, which kind of I wanted to all along. But it was always a great time, and it was so fun to be in the store. My manager one time got mad at me because he had his office in the bathroom because there was no room for an office. It was just like one, it was, how you have a bathroom that's not public. His desk was in there, and it was a computer table, and a guy came in once while he was gone and said, I want a computer table, and I would sell anything. I mean, and I sold his table, and then I told him, I said, where's my table? I said, I sold it. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I gave him 10% off. He says, you mean the table I had devalued completely in the bathroom, you gave him 10% off and bought it? He says, you can sell my car if you want to. Just I said, well, to do this, I'll probably get my manager mad. I could give you, so much off because I knew what I could do without his approval.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then the other thing is we had Christmas decorations, and I would ham it up. They always wanted us to put it out, and the managers just saw it as annoying. So I got my assistant, and we had so many decorations. It was hilarious. We had the little robots with like Santa Claus, and we'd go all out. And then I have to thank, I had some great employees. I had one employee that was an expert in knowing sports. And in Raleigh, you need to know sports. I mean, North Carolina. I'm not a sports follower, but I know it's important. So I'd go to Brad and I'd go, what do I need to say today? And he'd say, just say, how about that wolf pack? So they come in, because I go, how about that wolf pack? And then I go like this. I go, what do you want? I'd sell them the merchandise. So and then we would have, I also had all the customers that people had problem with come to my store. I'd send them to me. I said, if you think they're nuts or something else, send them to me, because was studying the martial art Aikido and trying to apply it to real life. and I took on the challenge of winning over customers. And so I would have all and they'd come to the store. Now, some of them really had some challenges, but they would buy from me. And if the managers thought I was crazy, because if they had a problem, I said, send them to Martin. And because I've watched you in action, when you listen to somebody, hear their concern. You don't have to agree with them. Validate their experience. It's such a rush when you win them over.
Yep.
And like no one ever, I mean, you don't have to say, I agree with you, just hear them out.
And that's one of the things that even like the Radio Shack train, you remember old videotapes that they have you watching all that. It was you let the customer do the talking, and then you just listen and you start to turn around and point them in the direction that that they lean towards it. So that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and your customer service there is excellent. I've always enjoyed when I come in and see it, how you handle. The guy was concerned because clearly you could have tried to sell him on a part for a computer, and it wasn't cost effective. And it was exciting to hear. I go, that's what I would have done. You said, look, it'll cost you this much. You could buy a new one for this much. I could, if you want, we have some rebuilt ones, but think it and that's the type of stuff that gets trust and loyalty that they can't find anywhere.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true, and that's exactly why we do it, because I can't sleep at night after if I was to take advantage of people. It's because we do have those refurbished systems. We have the new computer systems that are right over in the other room. We're able to still service them, still assist them should they decide to go that route. So that's always always got to think of the next step. What we can do to keep things going.
Yeah, and I heard you. You said, look, we have ones that will at least have the latest version on it, and grandma or grandpa or something, they want to talk to the grandkids. They don't need the fastest thing on the planet. They need it to work, and if they have a problem, they can bring it in and talk to someone. It sounds bright. I'm so excited, and I hope we can share this with other people. I also want to put a shout out to the manager in Washington, North Carolina. I got to meet him. Great guy.
Yeah, he's down at Thompson TV. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Thompson TV, a Radio Shack in Washington, North Carolina. Shout out to him. Always enjoy. He's got an employee that's been there forever. She's great too. I just hope this brings back some other fun memories. There's a Facebook group on Radio Shack and computers and stuff. So I'll share this in that community, and they're all over the world where we've been touched by it or built something on it, or and also young people, STEM programs. And I see you have some stuff back there that if they had a STEM program, they could buy boards and do circuits. And it's so valuable when you understand a little bit more about electronics. That's why I'm an expert in amateur radio and an advocate of that, because know something about your world, slow down and learn about it. And you've got a lot of resources there. You also, I want to close on, you help train at the community college, correct?
Yes, I do. I do the computer hardware and software support courses for the local community college here. It kind of fell in line with what we do. And so it's always a great experience. That's for sure.
Yeah. And shout out to the Small Business Center. We'll make sure, if you aren't, to hook up with them, because they're eager to help you, and I name dropped you there, and they know of you, so we'll make sure you guys.
I know several of the people there pretty well.
Yeah, because as you keep growing, well, let's get on the next. As Radio Shack grows, we'll have to do a follow up and hear the next level of progress. I'll put the link below. I want to invite everyone, go into their little shop. It's wonderful. Buy something from them. I'm sure you're going to get some more t-shirts in. I only saw a small in Radio Shack, so you probably got them on order.
Yeah, we got them on the way.
So check them out and support the business. And this is what I'm so passionate about, because you're helping your community, and it's so clear. So thanks that all you're doing in that wonderful town.
Oh yes, thank you. We're happy to be able to do it.